You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we've got a packed show. We've got England in the Netherlands scoring hundreds of runs and entertaining, well, thousands of fans. We've got India in India, drawing with South Africa. Some rain got in the way there. It could have been a thrilling series decider. It wasn't. And we've got India in England. We'll be looking forward to, we'll be talking about looking forward to that test series. And of course, the test cricket, which happens this week. New Zealand, the big losers of cricket in 2022 so far, New Zealand. Can they salvage some pride against England? We've got that to discuss. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Ross Legg. Ross, how are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks, mate. It feels like a while since we've done a podcast, even though that's probably not true.
I don't know. It might be a while. And we've got Max. Max, when you were on the podcast last with me, when did we do that podcast?
We did one halfway through the second test. You did one with Ross just afterwards. So.
All right.
It was last week, some point.
I got my two people mixed up. Sorry about that.
We're very forgettable. It's fine.
If it has been a long time, sorry that we missed you. We've got a lot to talk about today, though, so we shall proceed with the episode. But Ross, what are the messages?
You should follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and if you're watching this on YouTube, then hit like, hit subscribe, get us up to 100,000. We are only about 89,000 and a half away from the 100,000 mark, so step by step. Rome wasn't built in a day, was it, chaps?
No.
So
No.
that's very important. And if you want to contribute to the show, go to Patreon/the Cricket Podcast, or patreon.com/the Cricket Podcast, and sign up.
Yeah, we're literally about to record a Patreon special, aren't we? Talking about us. We've written questions for each other. People have submitted
Bit of navel gazing.
Yeah, it's not going to be about cricket.
We don't ever navel gaze. It's the first time we're navel gazing, I think.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so.
I reckon, when we get properly big time, when we get to 100k, that's all we'll do. We'll go on other people's shows and just talk about how good we are.
Well, kind of the Ricky Gervais approach to stand-up comedy now, where it's so much money.
Yeah, we'll do that. That's where we want to be.
That's the goal. That's the
Help
dream.
us become Ricky Gervais. Patreon.com/the Cricket Pod. Right, so I talked about the topics we've got today. We should probably keep India together as one chunk, and we'll do that at the end.
Okay.
So enjoy that when we get there. Which of the England topics do you want to talk about? We've got England v New Zealand. We've got England v Netherlands.
Let's start with the
choice.
Netherlands.
Yeah, let's start with England v Old Zealand.
Okay. I like that. Are they Old Zealand or are they just Zealand? No one says Old Hampshire, do they?
No, it's obviously Zealand is a province of the Netherlands, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that. England have been there. They've been playing some pretty good cricket. The Netherlands have also been there. I think have probably been playing at the limit of their abilities, but it has been a little bit one-sided. Max, can you, off the top of your head, just summarise for anybody that hasn't been watching too closely what's happened in the matches so far?
Yeah, in the first match, Jason Roy got bowled by his cousin, and everyone thought England were going to slip over on a banana skin. And then Phil Salt, David Milan, Ross Butler, and Liam Livingstone decided to go absolutely ballistic. And the only good thing that could be said about Owen Morgan is that he didn't waste any balls in his duck. Whereas Jason Roy's 1 off 7 cost England the opportunity of scoring 500 for the first time ever in one-day cricket. As it was, they fell 2 runs, agonisingly short at 498 for 4. And then Netherlands came out and they batted and they got a normal score, which was 230 odd runs, not enough.
In match 2?
And then in match 2, it was a bit of rain overnight. Some water got under the covers, so it was shortened to 41 overs a side. And New Zealand decided, I've done it again, Netherlands.
Only over 300 episodes in, Max.
Yeah, the Netherlands.
We've never talked about the Netherlands before, to be honest.
No, so it's very confusing. The Netherlands decided, having won the toss, that they were going to bat first so that everyone could go home early. They put up a bit of a fight. They posted 230 odd off their 41 overs with a bit of late hitting towards the end. But Jason Roy and Phil Salt broke the back of that chase pretty comfortably in England. Sauntered home despite Owen Morgan once again scoring a duck because he's not very good anymore, apparently.
So we've probably got three things to talk about then. We've got the 500. We've got Morgan. We've got the Netherlands in general. We should talk a little bit about whether we've liked anything about the Netherlands. And maybe as a fourth thing, we should address whether these matches are completely pointless or not. I've seen some speculation.
Mm-hmm.
So where would we like to begin, Ross?
I think we should start with Owen Morgan.
Okay,
I think he's been the leader of the white ball revolution. His last half century was June or July last year. So it's a lot of cricket between then and now. And he's looked pretty bereft. I mean, we watched obviously the IPL. The last IPL he was in, he was horrendous, and somehow the sacrificial captaincy role he fulfilled perfectly. They got to the final, they lost in the final, unfortunately, because they had a bigger sacrifice, didn't they? CSK, they had Mahendra Singh Dhoni. There's no bigger captaincy sacrifice than that. But Morgan's form now is a little bit troublesome because he's come out in the media and said, when I don't feel like I'm contributing to the team, it's time for me to step aside, and I will step aside. And he's literally come out and said that more than one.
Then.
So yeah, there is a big question now because he isn't contributing, hasn't been contributing for 12 months. The backers of Morgan kind of say, "Oh, this is just Owen Morgan. He doesn't do anything for a while, and then he comes out and has a brilliant run of form." I'm not sure that's going to happen this time.
Yeah, I get the impression that we are very much in the end game. It's similar, isn't it? You know, watching it from afar a little bit more with Aaron Finch. He's in the same boat, sort of in the team as this legacy guy who has done some good things. I mean, Owen Morgan's a batter. And we obviously talk so much about the captaincy now because of the poor form. But Owen Morgan as a batter will go down as one of England's best white ball players, I think. I think he would be in a greatest 11. He would be the captain of the greatest 11. I think that's fair enough. But I think we're some way on from the point at which he could regularly contribute. And in fact, even going back, you know, you'd probably have to actually go back to the 2019 World Cup for the last time that Morgan really definitely deserved a place in the team on the strength of his batting. Now, if you're a very good leader and you've got buy-in from all the players, you can create an atmosphere where people play really well and they want you to be the face of the team. The team want you to be the face of the team. You can cover to some extent, I think, for a lack of form, but not, in my view, to the extent that has happened, or to the extent which is happening. Particularly if we look at who isn't in the team, and I think this is where the problems, you know, it's really stark. In this team, playing against the Netherlands, maybe Morgan is in the best team. You know, maybe in the 11 that they're going to send over to the Netherlands, maybe Morgan is the best choice for captain, with or without runs. Maybe it does make sense to have a senior leadership figure, if you like, with the boys, with the new boys, teaching them the ropes, as they would say. But when you add Joe Root back into the team, when you add Bairstow back into the team, and when you add Stokes back into the team, you have to ask some serious questions about who drops out. Now, you can ditch Phil Salt because, with the greatest respect, the runs he's made against the Netherlands don't count. They don't, do they? You can ditch David Milan.
The Netherlands, they've not had the option of picking their best team, have they?
No, they haven't. They haven't. But you know, even if they had, you know, Phil Salt can score any number of runs against the best Netherlands team, and you're still going to pick Johnny Bairstow over him. Like, it's not. It's Phil Salt needs to build a body of work. Maybe in some T20 leagues around the world, maybe when he gets the chance because Roy or Bairstow get rested, to even put pressure on them. I think Roy and Bairstow are so far ahead in that category that even as good as Phil Salt is or looks, he's nowhere near the team. He's nowhere near that first 11. Same for David Milan. David Milan is not Joe Root, and he never will be Joe Root. So he does not get a place in the team, and there's no other space for David Milan in that 11. Then we get Ben Stokes coming back in, and here's where the crunch happens, I think, Max, and you could talk a little bit more about this. You've got Livingston, you've got Moeen Ali, you've got Owen Morgan, you've got Ben Stokes, and you probably only have 3 spots in that team, don't you?
Yeah, I think so, because Livingston's got to be nailed on, just from what he's done in the IPL. Like you said, the runs against Netherlands probably don't really count, but he's shown that he can now do it in India on slightly different pitches and against spin, which maybe was a criticism. And I think he just gives you something, a quality that is very hard to come by. Similar, I suppose, in the sense of what Ben Stokes can do, in that he can just win you a game from an improbable position. And Moeen Ali's got the extra spin option with Livingston. Now, maybe you could argue that Moeen Ali might drop out if Stokes comes back, because he gives you another option with the ball if you really want to keep
bullshit
Owen Morgan. But no, I mean, for me, it has to be Morgan that drops out of that, because it's just, I think what he's built has grown into something that is now beyond needing his care. He's planted the seeds of England's revolution. It's grown, and it's now a tree.
White ball revolution.
And he doesn't need to, and he doesn't need to water it anymore. We've got sprinklers set up to keep it going. It's an automated machine, and he can watch from the sidelines, happy at the little baby he's built, the juggernaut that he's put together.
What I would say is I think this applies more to the ODI team than it does to the T20 team. I think it's a less clear-cut decision to bring Stokes in for Morgan in a T20 team, and actually Morgan should arguably drop out for another player there. I think Stokes would be a little bit further down my list, but in this ODI team, Stokes is a fantastic ODI player. There's no way that you can go for an out of form Morgan over Stokes. And I think Livingston and Moeen Ali have done enough to stake their claim, let's say. Moeen can be a player who blows hot and cold. To be fair, he dropped out of the 2019 World Cup starting 11, didn't he, as the tournament went on? But I think while he's focusing on white ball cricket and he's playing as well as he has been,
but there are rumours, aren't there, that he wants to come back into the red ball game? So maybe he won't be focusing on it.
We'll see. So Morgan goes. Final point on the Morgan point. Who would replace him? Ross.
So my view,
Joe Root.
No, I think it would be Moeen Ali would actually be my replacement. I actually really like Moeen Ali, and I think he's he might have dropped out of that level, but we decided to go with a different tactic, right? Mark Wood was playing, Liam Plunkett was playing in that kind of lineup, and I actually think Moeen Ali is a great asset to have. And I also think that he brings a load of qualities that continue Morgan's style of leadership from what I've heard and what he said in the media. And actually, I think that continuation is typically a good thing when you're kind of looking to continue that machinery, as Max so wonderfully put it.
Max, who would you go for
as captain?
Yeah,
water boy.
It's centre forward.
It's an interesting one. I mean, Josh Butler's the vice captain, isn't he? I think
yes.
I suppose he would be the logical choice, because he's been there alongside what Morgan's put together. So he's sort of been there, throughout the process and understands what we're trying to achieve and what's needed, and can maybe take a lighter touch approach to it. And with the shorter format, it can often help to have your keeper as the captain, because they've got a better sort of vision of where people need to be. Works for Dhoni. Yep.
I also think, Max, the flip side of that is just let Josh Butler be Josh Butler. Now, the guy is an absolute freak. He's an alien. And then you're going to lumber the England captaincy, which has been a poison chalice for so many people. Just let him be.
That's a
I'd
fair
probably
point.
go with Butler too. I don't think Moeen would be necessarily my choice. I think he gets selected in pretty much every match, but there is potential that he's somebody that would drop out. Like, if you had to choose right now between Liam Livingstone and Moeen Ali in a team because of conditions, I would pick Liam Livingstone.
That's probably fair.
And that if Moeen's the captain,
matchups,
Morgan problem. I'd maybe go I think I maybe go with Butler. I think somebody who would have had a decent shout had they not punched a coach is Jason Roy, actually. But
allegedly. Let's not spread rumours. Allegedly.
Right. So other points from the series, the 500, that was fun, wasn't it, Max? Talk about that really quickly.
It was. I've never seen anything like it.
498.
498. It was basically 500, wasn't it? There was a period where Josh Butler was batting. There was a period where it literally looked like he was just down the driving range. He was just standing there, smacking the ball back over the bowler's head, like he was doing it off a tee. It was obscene. And was it just over £1,000 worth of cricket ball he lost in the end? I think. Was it nine balls at £120 a piece? So that's it'd take that out of his match fee. I think it was. I mean, it was one of those things where I think it's highlighted the fact that 500 is going to happen pretty soon. England probably should have done it then. They'll probably be kicking them. But you got Liam Livingstone kicking himself at scoring 50 off 17 because he didn't break the record. It was just one of those bizarre days where everything seemed to go right, and Netherlands were a little bit shell shocked. But you do have to feel for them a little bit, don't you? Being put up against that onslaught.
I'm glad it didn't happen. I think it would have been unfair for Netherlands to have that tag. I think you've got their like second bowling lineup, maybe their third bowling lineup. I
wanted us to declare on 480.
Max, I'm with you on that. I really want us to do it against Australia or India. That would be a real statement piece.
Yeah, take down Bumrah. The Netherlands haven't been all bad. I've quite enjoyed their batting. Is it Scotty Edwards? I don't know who calls him Scotty. I do.
Scotty doesn't know.
Was entertaining in the last match, wasn't he? Did I imagine this, or did their captain? Obviously, Edwards is now the captain. Did he retire like mid-match? Yeah.
No, he retired after the first one, so he got injured, and then he was just like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this. I've just been on the receiving end of brutal mauling. It's like I can't put my body.
You've been battered into retirement by England's middle order.
I think as well. I mean, this England ODI team, nobody can really live with them, to be honest. The skill gap is quite big between them and the second best team. So if you're probably the 13th best team, that's going to be quite difficult. I think from the Netherlands, what they can probably give themselves a little bit of credit for is that they have had little spells where they have been competitive, and it hasn't been a total annihilation in every match. Now, well, it has been a total annihilation in both matches, but what I mean is, they had a little spell, didn't they, where they took a few wickets in the last match, and they weren't going to win, but they stopped England scoring quickly, and England were 29 for 4, I think, over a 10 over period, which is you've done well there. You say good work to the spinners. Batting wise, they've had a few guys have a little bit of a knock. Getting 266 against a front nation, if you're an associate, is all right. I think you can pat yourselves on the back for that.
Yeah, I think you only get better by playing better teams. And yes, you don't want to get smashed for 500 every time and there'd be a complete mismatch. But I think the Netherlands, if they're just playing against teams like Scotland or Oman or whatever, they're not going to improve that much. I think they need to be playing on the big stage. They need to be getting the money in through the door to start to fund better coaching, better facilities, etc.
Like our friend Shane Dietz.
Exactly, friend of the pod, to kind of get in there. And I would quite like to see us do like a bit of a mini European tournament, actually. Like, I was always quite a fan of those little like tri-series, etc. It'd be quite nice to see Netherlands, England, Scotland, and Ireland actually play together every couple of years.
Maybe. What I do, I think England. I think England should play 3 ODIs at one of those places every year, or every couple of years.
Should we send nearly a first team when we do that?
Yeah. Why not? I mean, if you're going to do it effectively in the middle of a test series anyway, then why not? I mean, I guess that brings us on nicely, doesn't it, to the what's the point of this? I think Ross has made a point there. Like the way we find out how good Netherlands are is them playing against one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah,
it's them playing for, A-list nations. It's not how often they can beat Oman in Abu Dhabi. That is irrelevant, to be honest. to their development in so many ways. It's not testing any of the skills that they would learn playing cricket in the Netherlands. It's not testing what their ability is against the best bowlers in the world. It's not testing their ability when they're under pressure because someone like Josh Butler's hit 4 sixes in an over. Like, well, what do you do there? That doesn't happen very often in games against Oman, does it? In fact, I don't have the stats in front of me. I would be quite surprised if there's an Omani batter that's hit 4 sixes in an over more than once. Like you're getting exposure to a much higher standard of cricket. And I think for me as well, I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world that you have to play a team that's a bit worse than you. Like, I don't understand why.
Well, it's something that we'll have to do in World Cups.
We're so snobbish about this.
It's good practice for kind of those situations when you're in a you got the first game of World Cup and you have to play the Netherlands and then you lose because someone throws the ball too far.
You don't have to play the very best 11. But if you play sort of 6 of them, then the other 5 guys, what they're doing is they're getting exposure to a real match where the stakes maybe aren't quite as high as if they were thrown in for a match against Australia or a match against India, but it provides a sort of decent stepping stone into that team. You get an opportunity to actually play. I wrote off Phil Salt's runs, but he won't be thinking about it like that, will he? He'll be really happy with himself.
He's got an England century, yeah. If he turns around and goes, if he doesn't play any more cricket for England, he's going to his grandkids. I've got a century for England.
Yeah, but also he is now the next choice opener if Johnny Bairstow pulls his hamstring, or if Root in the World Cup 2019, Roy did hurt his hamstring, didn't he? And missed
James Vince, not
4 or 5 matches.
The forgotten man.
Not James Vince anymore, is it? It will be Phil Salt. So whilst the runs are meaningless in terms of breaking into that first 11, they're not meaningless for showing that you can deal with playing international cricket in front of a crowd and on Sky Sports 1. Like it's. If anyone had any questions about that, and they do in cricket, I think it's ridiculous that anyone would think like that. But people do think like that. They do think, can this man do it when the pressure of the Sky cameras is on? Now he's proved that, and so for Phil Salt, that is career progression.
Well, it's a well-known phenomenon in the Blast, isn't it? As soon as the Sky camper van turns up, everybody melts and turns to shit.
Yeah, I also think from the point of view of just developing cricket, there is an obligation if you are England, the second richest board in the world, to do some stuff to support cricket in some of these smaller nations, be that Ireland, Scotland, or the Netherlands. It shouldn't be England's role here to help Nepalese cricket or Afghan cricket, maybe. It's because you've got Pakistan, you've got India in that neck of the woods, and they should be the ones that play those games. But England, they should play a role in developing cricket in Europe as the main cricketing power in Europe. And if the easiest way to do that, or if one of the easiest ways to do that, is to go on a big jolly and invite thousands of your fans over, raise the profile of the game, give the Netherlands or Ireland some exposure to top tier cricket, whilst testing some of your best players, I don't really see, or whilst testing some of your next best players, I don't really see who's the loser there. It didn't look like anyone in the crowd wasn't having a good time. You're not forced to watch it on Sky Sports, but it was quite entertaining if you did. Like, I don't. What have we lost here?
Who are the naysayers? That's what I wonder. Who's being down and out? Which are probably the same people who blame the 100 for everything.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it could be some of that kind. I've seen people make some noise about the series being a bit pointless. It's not helped, and I have a little bit of sympathy for the point of view that Netherlands aren't playing their best team because some of the players would make more money playing county cricket. The ECB should have done something about that. They should have been like, we'll pay a proper match fee to the Netherlands players for putting on this bonanza, that putting on this jolly. At least enough so that the players that really could compete turn up. When Scotland and Ireland have beaten England in the last 2 years, it wasn't their C team that did it. It was the players that they wouldn't get in the England team, but they would get in some of the other international 11s, and they had days out, and that put England under a bit of pressure, and that's how England lost. There's not really anyone in this Netherlands team maybe Edwards a side that could do enough damage to really put England under pressure, and he'd have to get 180 with that bowling lineup. So
yeah,
that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think you're all right. And and as you said, like there's some of the Dutch cricketers are actually pretty good. They play a load of county cricket, and actually they perform really quite well. Max, you've been taken apart as a Surrey team supporter, I'm sure plenty of times by someone like Rolf van der Merwe and whoever else.
Not this year, mate. I'm unstoppable this year.
Yeah, it's because you got fucking Kieran Pollard and Sunil Narine.
It's
ridiculous. It's more been Will Jackson and Jason Roy and
you're playing
and
IPL
Sam Curran
cricket.
and Reece Topley and there's Narine and it's ridiculous. I went through it the other week. It's
No, but I did see some people suggest that England shouldn't have taken this seriously as well, and they've sent like a county development 11.
And that that makes it extra pointless, doesn't it? Yeah, if you're saying it's pointless because England are going and hammering people, it's even more pointless if you just don't actually take a proper team.
Yeah, I mean, Max, to the extent where some of the suggestion I saw was that England should have sent a development 11 captained by Darren Stevens to play. And I was like, "What
is that guy? Is he?
That's
is it a brain injury?
Darren Stevens? Darren Stevens is at his career is nascent, isn't it? He's at the very start of his one-day career for England.
Here's the thing about that, though, is that sort of thing does kind of happen under the banner of the MCC or whatever it is, and thousands of people don't go and watch it at Amstelveen. Like the Sky Sports don't put it on Channel 1. We don't talk about Phil Salt for 10 minutes because of it. Like I honestly can't understand how you can get to that logical conclusion. Yeah, look, the games aren't 50-50 at the outset. They aren't. It's England, the best team in the world, versus Netherlands.
They almost never are 50-50 at the outset.
Yeah.
What would be the point of sport if everything were 50-50 at the outset?
But you can learn a lot if you're Netherlands about who can cut the mustard and who can't.
Yeah. What winds me up about that is that person has clearly sat and thought about that and still come to the most dumb proposal I've ever heard on this podcast. Like, that is embarrassing. Anyway,
right, should we move on to New Zealand? England v New Zealand, that is. Not and Max.
Not the Netherlands.
We're talking about the New Zealand from the other side of the world here, not the New Zealand from Europe.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Not the ones who like trams.
Well, they might like trams. I don't know.
They might.
Not the ones that really like weed
and windmills.
Although one in our team.
Although we do.
There's a lot of similarities here. That's all we're saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, there's a Zealand connection. They're 2-0 down. New Zealand are. They're playing England in the final test of the series. There's a bit of a COVID scare that rippled through the camp, but that seems to have gone quiet now. Conway and Bracewell did go down temporarily. Ross, what are you looking forward to in this third test? There's also from the England side as well. I'm really breezing over some of the news here because I am. Jamie Overton's in the squad.
Yeah, well, can I start with something I think is a little bit more important? I mean, it starts on this Thursday. It's at Clean Slate Headingley. In my opinion, it shouldn't be taking place there at all. After the Azim Rafiq racism scandal, which has rocked English cricket, I think it's fair to say, it's taken yet another turn where it's been poorly managed yet again around the people who've been announced or haven't been announced around who's being charged with bringing the game into disrepute. And just how it's been handled at every turn by Yorkshire, by the ECB, has been a bit of a disaster. And that's probably to really undercook it, if I'm perfectly honest. The fact that Durham were punished so severely for, they took a loan from ECB, got relegated, docked points, all that kind of stuff, haven't hosted a game in God knows how many years or whatever for a test match. I thought, and Max, you might have a different opinion to me on this, but I thought it was way too soon for Headingley to be hosting a game like this. I'm
afraid for anyone looking for some sort of debate or a
you're saying we need to ring
opinion,
up a racist.
I'm afraid I have to agree with you, Ross. I mean, it's under a year, isn't it? Like they've not even lost out on a test match. No. Since the ban was like basically a pointless ban. And what how is that enough time to show genuine progress? They've moved a few people around. They sacked a bunch of people, and they did it so badly that they've been taken to court for doing it. So that's gone well.
And they lost, I think.
Yeah, they lost. Yeah, sorry, they lost in court for constructive dismissal because they, they're appealing. But I mean, it's a whole hot mess. They've got David Willey's buggered off because he's pissed off at how they've treated some of the other staff that they've sacked, who are sort of in the background. I think it was a physio and another coach that they've let go. Tom Kohler-Cadmore's leaving as well, asked to be released from the last year of his contract. They're in a complete mess as a county. They've obviously not fixed anything, because you can't fix everything in the space of 6-7 months or whatever it was since the hearing, and you have to have shown some demonstrable progress in what you're trying to do before the people who punished you can turn around and say, okay, it looks like you're doing things the right way, we're happy to let you have Test cricket back. But no, the main punishment's just been lifted because someone said that we're sorry and it's better now. Yeah. It's a joke. There's so many other places that would be more deserving of a game right now, and well, it's not happened. So
there was some quite unfortunate reporting of what's happened as well, because a bunch of people have been charged by the ECB for being racists.
Bringing the game into disrepute.
The ECB have decided not. I think it's maybe what you were alluding to, Ross. Decided not to name any of those people, and there is an element, I think, of habeas corpus and all that, innocent until proven guilty. So maybe that's fair enough. What was interesting, a couple of sources reported though, was that so they reported that the ECB are going to charge a number of people at Yorkshire County Cricket Club for what was it, Ross?
Bringing the game into
disrepute. And then they followed that up in the very next sentence by saying Azim Rafiq is also expected to be charged. So named him. He hasn't been charged yet. He may not be charged. Just outright named him, and it's kind of
you almost can't write it.
Pathetic, really. That here we are, still going with this story and still getting shoddy coverage of it. The main offenders have been let off pretty much scot-free. They're going to make a fuck ton of money this summer.
Well, and I think there was a newspaper. I think one of the newspapers named the people as well, and it's just like ECB, again, just so poorly handled. Like whoever's, they probably have like a PR team, and they've got a legal team. Whoever they're paying, they're not paying them enough, and they've got shit ones. That's what they've got. It's frustrating.
Anyway, whoever they're paying them far too much.
Yeah, quite possibly.
It's going to be at Headingley. There's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah,
probably shouldn't be at Headingley. It should be somewhere else. We're not going.
Hopefully, we lose.
Wouldn't have gone anyway. But,
that would teach them. But okay, yeah. So
hopefully, New Zealand beat us in one day.
Yeah. 5 days of rain would be good.
Yeah, rain's all of it.
Just a Yorkshire microclimate.
Exactly.
The stories from the match: England have picked Overton. There's rumours that Anderson will be rested. Presumably, that's to keep him fresh for the India match after that. And nobody really knows who'll play for New Zealand because there's been a bit of COVID, and they still care. Who would like to answer one of those questions?
Well, I think Jameson's out, isn't he? Jameson's gone back to New Zealand, so because of his bad back. And yeah, they have been a little bit unlucky. De Grandhom's out as well.
Yeah.
So Southey looked very jaded by the end of it as well in the last Test match. So it'll be interesting to see who they pick. But again, what I want to know is, do you see there being a bit of rest and rotation in the England side? So Jimmy Anderson, I can understand, but actually, can you see, say, a Stuart Broad dropping out as well, and actually them playing both the Overton twins? It'd be quite nice to actually see Jamie Overton play, I think.
I think it would be madness not to play Jamie Overton having called him up.
Yeah, but that's...
Yeah. It's peak England, obviously. It's 100% from the playbook of what we always do. But why would you bother? It would be. I don't know. The county championship starting again in a couple of weeks. So I mean, I would expect him to play for that reason, especially if there's going to be space with Anderson dropping out. And England did look at times toothless, didn't they, when the ball stopped moving? And Jamie Overton's been bowling quickly this year, so he gives a bit of something else, doesn't he? He bashed his brother in the head in the county championship game against Somerset. I think he hit 2 people on the helmet actually in that game. So a bit of life with the ball, something a bit different for the New Zealand batsman to think about, perhaps. So I would like to see him.
We've seen him live this year, haven't we, Ross? He did bowl quite fast.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to face him. I must admit, it did look pretty horrible.
Faced you down on Twitter as well, didn't he?
I just think that's because he clearly has been hit in the head as well at some point.
I can't condone that, I'm afraid.
I've actually met Jamie Overton and Craig Overton.
Have you?
Yeah,
they're nice.
They're really nice, actually. Yeah, really nice. As much as I was joking about that, it was I played
one of the guys I was with bumped into Jamie Overton on the way out of the game that you were giving him pelts for, actually, as well. I think.
Well, it was I played down in North Devon on a cricket tour, and him and his brother served us cricket tea with his mum, I think. So,
that's nice.
Yeah, it's quite a wholesome bit. And if you ever get the chance, go to North Devon's cricket ground. It is gorgeous.
Right, in this match, talking points. Would you drop Anderson? Either of you?
Rest drop, Anderson.
Rest, yeah. I would.
And then you would pick Overton. Would you also drop Broad?
No, I don't think I would play Broad against India.
Who would you play against India instead of Broad then, Max?
I think I'd. Well, I suppose it's the injuries, though, isn't it? Again, I think it would depend on how the guys do that come in. But I would be considering. I mean, because Robinson's still out, isn't he? So it does get a bit tricky. You might actually have to play Broad against India because no one left.
No, Wokes might be back. So
Wokes might be back.
Yeah,
okay,
Wokes is apparently going to start playing again this week or next week.
Okay.
So he could be.
Well, if he starts playing next week, he won't be back, will he?
Hey, England don't have weirder things. They just we need to play him for his batting.
Sam Curran, he's been playing against the Netherlands, hasn't he? Or at least in one of those matches. How far away is he from Test match cricket, Max?
I think he's probably a little bit away from the kind of workload needed for playing a Test. He has bowled in the Red Bull game, but his bowling was limited. He's been bowling well in the Blast, but 4 overs in spurts is a completely different.
4 overs
is an animal, isn't it? It's not quite,
less overs.
Not quite the same. Yeah.
He's
getting there. I think he's nearly ready. He should be ready by the South Africa tests.
Are New Zealand bad now, Ross?
No, not at all.
No, okay.
I don't think. I think it's just been. There's been a couple of bits where.
Are England good?
I'm not sure of that as either. I think it's one of those bits where the Kiwis haven't played terrible cricket. They've just played some bad cricket at bad times in those Test matches. Like sometimes it comes down to those crunch points, and those crunch points have fallen in the favour of England. Yes, they've been a little bit unlucky with injuries as well, but at the same time, like Test matches are really difficult. I don't think you can turn around and write New Zealand off. But again, they've not had their captain playing. Their glue, which is Colin de Grandon, it was out from the first one, was injured in that Test match, and Jameson pulled up early in this one. So I think England have got quite lucky with that, but then also have the ability to capitalise. So yeah,
I think they can take positives, can't they? New Zealand as well, as much as they've lost. Like Darryl Mitchell coming in, he's been brilliant with the bat. That's been really good for them, and Trent Bolt's been Trent Bolt. I was lauding Anderson for his performance with the ball when it was the flattest deck in the world, and that was before Trent Bolt finished his opportunity to do the same thing. I think there's so much there that's good about New Zealand that it'll turn around soon.
Agreed.
Fair enough. Anything else in this Test? Who do you think is going to win?
I hope this gets rained off as we start the draw.
Yeah.
Okay. Rain. Okay, that's 3 Rainos.
No more analysis. 2-0.
2-0 series win though. I think it would be a pretty good start, and that's rather stating the obvious. But it has far exceeded my expectations already. The change in captaincy and coach. If they were able to clinch some kind of series victory 10-0. Against New Zealand, even though New Zealand have had injuries and the captain missed a test, and this, that, and the other, I think it would be really impressive. Particularly, I think on the side from the point of view of the bat, But I don't. It's not been England when they win at home. Traditionally, what happens is that they just skittle a team in one of the innings, and there's 3 hours where it's very difficult to play. A combination of Broad, Anderson, and another, and it's game over. That's not really how they've won either of these games. They've won these games by stacking on runs and playing flamboyant cricket with the bat in hand, and that partly a little bit of luck, maybe that the pitches have been flat at the right time. Partly a little bit of luck that Joe Root's pulled out. I mean, it's a little, not luck necessarily, but Joe Root did a Joe Root in the first test as well. But they hadn't done that in any tests for at least a year, going back to Chepauk in 2020, and even that was just Joe Root.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the personnel aren't very different, but it's got to be that mental side of things. England in the past, you'd expect to completely crumble under a 550 run first innings deficit, and they didn't, and that was really surprising. Now, it could just be a one-off, and it could be a fluke, and it could be nothing to do with the change, because it's happened once out of one opportunity. But it's a positive sign, isn't it? And of course, we actually tried to win the game. Obviously, we will all remember when we played and we had to chase, we had to go 3.5 and over and couldn't be bothered.
Was it 275 of 75 overs or something like that, wasn't it? And we were just like, nope. Yeah,
in a game that meant nothing really.
I mean, even at tea in the fifth test, I think England 6 months ago would have been
sharp, 100%.
We're just going to block now.
Yeah.
We've done well. Let's just block and keep our 1-0 win.
And then for some reason, New Zealand started bowling 80-mile-an-hour half trackers to the short boundary. Hooray!
Yeah, I still think Bairstow under team orders would have just sort of stood there and let the ball hit him 6 months ago. Instead he was like, no, I'll see what happens. I'll buy a ticket. And he bought a good ticket, a golden ticket. Right.
He bought a whole strip of raffle tickets.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.